It is the summer of 1985 in the City of Angels. I am on my dad's construction site in Inglewood, a Southern California inner-city suburb, inside a 1982 white Ford pickup truck. In the passenger seat, I was staring out the cracked window. An occasional wind slipping through would dry the slight beads of sweat pooling on the top of my forehead. I was 7. I would watch my dad's every move commanding his workers in the unforgiving heat. He moves about with a purpose, like a powerful machine-like superhero. I secretly wanted to be like him. As he walked past the truck, I held my breath, excited they would look my way, maybe even wink or smile. But just as I was looking over, I realized he was summoning one of his workers. He had no time to look at me, no matter how desperately I wanted his glance. This is This ShXt Open, a story podcast about coming into who you are while accepting the things you cannot change. Why did I feel like my dad dismissed me and was never there for me? Was he disappointed that I was a girl child? How did this make me feel about myself and shape my confidence in who I am? There's only one way to go from here. It is time to have a hard conversation. I need to express how I feel and ask my father why he never had time for me. This is Rhythm and Blues Part 1.
Hello, Shay.
That's my dad. He is from Lake Providence, Louisiana, and was born in 1942. His story is rich, but simple. Not much different than many Black Americans growing up in the South who made the Great Migration to the West for better opportunities. My grandma, at the time, was a single mother. My dad was the eldest of 3. From 1942 to 1947, my grandma took a leap of faith and moved her tiny family from Louisiana to Ohio in search of my dad's biological dad. With no luck, they left and finally settled in Las Vegas, a place my dad still calls home.
And what was your dad's name?
Samuel Potter. I saw a picture of him, but I never did meet him. I wasn't old enough or to recognize him, but apparently my mother, she just couldn't get along with him or something of that sort. And she tried several times to try to make it work, but then she finally gave up. And 46, 47, yeah. Because that's the year that I remember coming to Las Vegas, was in 47.
My grandma later remarries when my dad was just a preteen. Until then, he had not experienced a father figure in the home. My father's livelihood drastically improved when Grandpa arrives. My grandpa built their new home and elevated the family out of poverty. So many good Thanksgiving memories are still nestled within the walls of their home.
He came into our lives. I was about 12, about 13, I guess, when he came into our lives. My mother, through her jobs and so forth like that, she was able to buy that ground where that house was built on. And then we had a stepfather that he was a carpenter, and he helped build that house there. We moved to that house before it was even completed because we had always been living in a substandard type of house. When the wind blew, they had a lot of wind. When it blew in Las Vegas, it would knock down the walls, and we could be laying on a pad or something and actually look up at the sky.
Did Grandma or Grandpa ever come to your track events?
No, they never, they never came to my sporting events.
Did you want them to?
Yeah, I kind of would have loved to have them there, but my mother was too busy working all the time because she wanted to make sure she had food on the table and make sure we had, the proper meals.
So Grandpa also wasn't really involved with you as a kid?
No, he wasn't, because he come along about 1953,
Mm-hmm.
54. He didn't have very much to do with me in the early years like that. See, we already had built that brick house. He more or less helped us to complete that brick house. As I say, we moved in there with no heat, barely electricity. We was just glad to get shelter, because we had always been living in a place that you couldn't call a home. It was just a shelter, not to building standards.
I fundamentally believe every kid wants to look in the stands and see their parents. I know I did. So I couldn't help but wonder what my dad actually felt, reflecting on the absence of father figures in his youth days. When Grandpa couldn't make his high school track meets, did my dad feel like I did when I searched the stands for him? What about in victory? Did he feel like me after beating my opponent in the last 200 meters and taking the third place? The classic come from behind victory was a prideful moment where I was showered in hugs and cheers from my teammates, high school coaches, and other parent figures. Then the moment faded to just an ordinary day. When I returned home, my dad was sleeping on the living room couch. The 10 o'clock news was watching him. I wonder if he felt like I did. Fathers look forward to playing catch with their boys. It's a special rite of passage. I often bucked this trend, defiantly dangling my kid-sized 10.5 cleats over those boundaries that separated my father and I. It was 1990. I was 12 and a diehard fan of the Los Angeles Dodgers. After another one of my mom's guilt trips, I benefited yet again, and my dad tried to make it up by spending money on me. He takes me to Pep Boys, an all-in-one store, to purchase my first leather baseball glove, a bat, and new cleats. As the cashier ran up the sizable bill, my dad whipped out his silver credit card and then flashed me a look, handing me the bag. "Are you good with that?" I eagerly nodded. This was our ritual. So after school, the next day, I just had to break in this new leather glove. I somehow convinced my mother to play catch with me. Imagine playing catch with a Diana Ross type of woman. She tried, but clearly never spent much time outside or around sports for that matter. Then Dad came home. He made his way straight to the kitchen and sat in his favorite chair. My mom and I continued to play catch. However, I could visibly see her getting upset as she turned and watched my dad through the kitchen window.
What were your thoughts, your personal thoughts about having children? Like, is that something that you cherished, or it was just kind of a thing? I mean, were you proud of that?
Not initially.
Do you know why?
I did want a son, and you turned out to be a girl, but that didn't still change my level of interest in you. All I wanted to do was make sure you had everything and well taken care of. Yeah. So you didn't initially have a connection with me because I wasn't a boy. You were disappointed. I wasn't disappointed, but I mean, that was my preference, was a boy,
The Dodgers were playing amazingly in the playoff series. After watching the final inning, I ran downstairs, took off through the glass sliding door into the living room and into our backyard. I head to my makeshift pitcher's mound, a sunburned red brick I strategically dug into the ground. As I took my pitching stance, I saw my dad enter the kitchen and sit next to the window. He flipped the long folds of the Los Angeles Times newspaper and immersed himself in the previous day's happenings. I wound up, kicked my leg out, with my eyes then locked on my target. I let the ball fly. High right. On the other end, was a white stucco wall where I drew a box target. I retrieved the ball for another pitch. My shadow grew with each attempted pitch. The sun was setting. My mom peered out the sliding door and summoned me to clean up for dinner. I pleaded for more time. She relented and closed the door. I had 10 minutes, so I ran over to pick up my new bat and ball from the grass. I tossed the ball just high enough to position quickly underneath and swing, then retrieve the ball. On my last toss, I pitched the ball into the pink and purple striped blue sky. I waited as the ball descended into my target box. I connect. As the vibration shot down the bat, I heard a crash. My eyes darted over to my father's standing silhouette peering through the kitchen window. He then darts out towards the broken sliding door, visibly upset. All I can think of was, wow, that was a great swing.
Do you think that's why you subconsciously didn't play a large role growing up because I was a girl? I'm just trying to figure out that gap as to, okay, you have a girl, you wanted a boy. She plays basketball, baseball, she's a little rambunctious. She likes music, she likes building things. But even with all of that, I can't really find that connection as a father to her.
Well, I just, at that time, I just accepted you for what you were. I just said, well, you were a girl. I wasn't going to not love you as much. I never took that position. I just said, well, I want you to turn out to be self-sufficient. I just said, well, I'm going to make doggone sure that you got your education and that you could be on your own level. You wouldn't have to ask a man for anything other than friendship. You could make your own and do your own thing. I was going to make sure that you didn't have to want for anything in that process.
Right.
So I made sure that whatever you needed as far as school supplies, clothing, I just said, well, you're not going to be able to have that excuse because you won't have to experience any of that kind of thing.
My favorite room in the house was my dad's small music room. It was situated near the front of the home. On one wall rested an old blue corduroy couch. Across from it, a wooden rocking chair facing outside, overlooking a well-manicured lawn. And on the other full-size wall was a musical shrine of equipment, an 8-track machine, album player, equalizer, and full bass speakers. 3 crates filled with albums sat on the floor. Some of the richest and warmest sounds would emanate from that room and fill every cell through my body. From B.B. King, Sam Cooke, Ray Charles, even Mahalia Jackson. The den had a dimmer light where large shadows seemed to dance along the walls in time. I loved hearing Mahalia's voice. She made you feel the heaviness, but also the hope she embraced. On occasion, I silently slipped in the room while my dad was sleeping and sit next to the soft crackling speakers. As if on cue, he would nod in and out of his naps, sometimes causing me to freeze still. After a few seconds, I shift my attention back to the speakers.
I've been involved with music from a very early start. I went to Madison Elementary, and that's where I got involved there. See, we only had 2 kind of schools over there on the West Las Vegas. At that age, that happened in junior high school that I got involved in music because I have an instrument that I have today, which is a trombone. I used to go to a lot of parades and marching bands, at the parades, and I was impressed with those guys, walking in the front of the band. They would be on the front line and they would have these horns and they would just be pushing them back and forth, that slide part. I got kind of impressed with that.
Tell me about your music room. I mean, what convinced you to build or convert that den to your music room? The one with the 8 tracks, the 45s. I mean, it basically had all of your music equipment.
Yeah, I remember that room there. Yeah, well, see, I had that same room at my first house.
Yeah.
I've always been in the music. Even when I was in the service, that's when I've got a little portable, a little small turntable, and I used to play my records. And even when I was in the Navy, we went out to sea at the end of the day or the end of the tour like that. I'd just migrate down there and put on my little records and zone out.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you remember times where both of us spent time in that music room?
Yeah, it's kind of foggy, but
Yeah.
I know that there were times when my friend Cleveland, remember him?
Yes, I remember him.
He'd come over and we would get in that room over there.
It's interesting how these are really clear to me, but they're still very foggy for you. But that's where I also got my love of music. I describe you in music. Your moods, your where you are. I can tie it to specific songs. I know what your favorite songs are, your favorite artists, and it all comes from that music room. Or I have memories of you being in the garage, and at the time we had a green Cadillac, and you would sit in the back, and just...
That was a green Buick. I never had
I'm sorry, the green Buick, yep. And you have the garage door open and you just have the music blaring and be zoned out, and I remember trips to Vegas. You remember the Circus Cities? I remember the actual drives because of the music, and just you always played the same soundtrack or playlist. Every time we drove, it didn't change. It was the same artist. And so those are my sharpest memories that I had, because even though I didn't have very many interactions with you, the few times that I was allowed in your space, music was playing, and so that's why it's so special to me, because that was the only time that I can get close to you and connect with you. You had a child that, lived every day with you and can only have these little moments, with who this man was, that, was her father. So those things I still cherish. And like I said, they form a lot of who I am. The things that you naturally like as a kid and grew up, I like and still like.
Memories are always not as clear as we like them to be. Cleveland, a close family friend, was my dad's running partner and will often visit our home. Relaxing in my dad's music room, they will laugh and shout, thoroughly having a good time. Sometimes I will poke my head in the door and just listen. There was one memory of my father and I where I know every detail. My father generally recalls that day.
Do you have any favorite memories that you still hold on to when I was little?
I remember that time we went on that water ride up there on one of those hotels, the water ride. Or was that the park?
But I was a teenager then. I'm talking about when I was little, Dad.
Okay.
When you could have picked me up.
After I asked your mother to come home and just concentrate on rearing you and taking you here to the house, that alleviated me with in those early duties. I recall her just getting on my case about spending some time with you, and she just put her foot down, and I had to take you to the park. Sit down in the park over there where I took you over there a few times and put you in a swing and just push you on the swing. No, you were little then, and I was just pushing you in the swing, and you kept saying, well, higher. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to push you too hard, where that swing would just create some slack in the chain and cause you to fall out. I said, no, I don't want to do that. I'll just push you moderately,
You remember telling me a little story? You remember the gingerbread story that you told me?
Gingerbread man? I may have.
We've been out in the park for a while, which again, as a young kid, you're not cognizant of time. I was just having fun with my dad. But you pointed to this house right near the playground area. And I remember it was getting dark, and you stopped me on a swing. And as you were pointing to the house, you started telling me about this gingerbread man. This gingerbread man that comes out at night. And he specifically looks for kids that are still in the park. And he eats them. Yeah. You don't remember telling me about that story? And you told me that if we stayed, he will come for me.
I was just trying to get you out of the park. That's what it was.
That is one of the most beautiful memories I have of us. I don't have a lot, but that one takes the cake for me because of, as a young kid, I just craved for your attention and time and interest. And that is probably one of the memories where I finally got those things, even though it was for a couple of hours. I still reflect on it to this day. I remember being in the music room again, the den.
Oh, okay.
And you just came home for work. And the room I had my luggage and all these boxes. I remember you stopping right there at the door and saying, hey, what's going on? And I was like, I'm leaving for college. And you were like, what? I was like, Dad, I am going to college. I leave tomorrow. And it was like I had to jog your memory that here's this person that you had, and 17 years later, and probably one of the most important days that they're finally leaving the house, you had like no idea.
That was quite a deal. Makes me wonder and wonder about what I was thinking about at that time. A lot of your childhood, I was just trying to make ends meet or just be able to accommodate your needs. Yeah, if you came to me, I wouldn't have to make excuses. I just, ask you when you want to go get it, what you want to do, just like that first computer that I got for you. Your mother thought very hard of me when I got that computer, and I tried to tell her, I just want you to develop it, and it really did become proficient at this thing, and it might turn out to be a great investment.
The following is an excerpt from episode 5 of Crack This Shit Open.
But you do acknowledge that you weren't involved when I was younger. You paid for my school, but you weren't hands-on. You did not know who your daughter was.
No, we didn't. You know, your mother used to accuse me of being a provider, not a hands-on person like that. You know, she used to get under my skin about making that statement. You're just a provider.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, that kind of rubbed me. You know, it made me feel a little differently.
Why? Do you think it's true, or you don't want it to be true?
Yeah, I think there was a gap there, and that's one of the reasons why, like I said, I called you and wanted to come to Georgia and spend some time with you.
My father never noticed me. I never knew why. We were like two separate souls moving in different orbits. We were distant, disconnected. I could not see his world, nor could he see into mine. Purposely or not, my father nurtured this separation. Willingly or not, we will have to work to sew the holes in our delicate fabric. Will we ever reach that good place where he acknowledges his actions? A good place to start is beginning the conversation. Stay tuned for more conversations with my father in episode 5, Rhythm and Blues Part 2 of Crack This ShXt Open.
Crack This ShXt Open is narrated and produced by Shay Potter. Editing on this episode from Chelsea Sutton and Shay Potter. Sound design and mix by Nathan Maughan. Special thanks to Murdy Jean Potter on this episode. Music in this episode is Solace Piano by Keith Anthony Holden, Never Forgets by Ketsa, Home Road by Kai Engel, Cinematic Indie by Morning Light Music, Hymn for Reason by Patrick Smith. Our theme song is by Blue Dot Session. Please check out more at our website, ShaylaDPottermedia.com. That's ShaylaDPottermedia.com. Crack This ShXt Open is owned by Be Better Media Productions Company.